Hi, I'm Brock Davidson from Brock's Performance. As you can see, I have a little smorgasbord of components here for our 2017 GSX-R1000 project. All I wanted to do was take a minute to sort of explain what we consider taking a bike from stock to Brock. And all we do is basically go from how you would buy your bike off the showroom floor to as fast as we know how to make it with all bolt-on components. And seems like a relatively simple task, but these days it gets pretty complicated, and a lot of our trouble comes from right in here. The bikes are very restricted these days, the way they come off the showroom floor, mostly for emissions, and believe it or not, quite a bit is for noise control. So when we want to take them to the drag strip or road race for track days, one of the first things we have to do is de-restrict the ECU. Now, we've been doing this for years. We've got partners that have done it. We do it ourselves on some bikes, on some models, and we're going to go ahead and take on that challenge with this new 2017 GSX-R. We've got a harness that we're working with here with some partners of ours, and I went ahead and bought a stock ECU in advance before we even mess with our bike. Ours hasn't even been started yet. There's no reason to. We've got plenty of research to do on it on our own personal bike. But one of the things we noticed was right before 11,000 RPM, this is a throttle-by-wire bike, even at wide open throttle, the ECU starts turning the butterflies backwards. It's very similar to what we first started seeing on, well, on the BMWs, and then also on the ZX-10s, the 2011 ZX-10s, I think was the first time we really saw it. And by the time you get to wide open throttle at 12,000 RPM, these things are shut all the way back to 65%. So that's the first thing we're going to address, is de-restricting this thing. And there are other things going on, ignition timing, and not only do these bikes have horsepower limits, you'd ask yourself, why would they do that on my super fast 1000cc motorcycle? Well, not only are there horsepower limits that they have to consider, and emissions limits that they have to consider, but also for noise. Obviously, a bike that's at wide open throttle, making 200 horsepower, is going to be quieter if they knock it down in the 100 and let's say 60 horsepower range. So that's just an estimate. Like I said, we haven't had the bike on the dyno. One thing that people may not realize is that when we design an exhaust system, we don't design it for a completely stock motorcycle. If you look at the head pipes on the GSX-R, they've got smaller head pipes. It's built for driving around, torque. That's great. But at wide open throttle with a de-restricted ECU, you need to get the exhaust flow out of these things. So it may look like just bent tubing to a lot of people, but the diameter of the tubing, the length of the head pipes, the collector length, this is all very important when it comes to making maximum power. And then another thing is, we're going to raise the rev limit a little bit. So we're changing the operating range of the motorcycle, and the exhaust has to compensate for that. So it's not just a let's build a pipe to work like stock. These are combinations that we work on, and we go from a lot of experience, a lot of past experience, and a lot of R&D when it comes to something like this. And then another thing that we build into our exhaust that a lot of the guys that spend most of their time road racing don't worry about is we build in ground clearance. We know our guys are going to drag race. There's no doubt about that. You don't have to drag race, but if you go and slam the bike on the ground, you don't want to have to worry about ground clearance. You don't want to have to worry about if you slam down from a wheelie. You don't want to have to worry about if your bike's lowered, going over a manhole cover or a speed bump and tearing up your exhaust. So anyway, all that's built in, and there's also some other considerations in this particular pipe that we'll talk about a little bit later. Another thing, we're working all this effort trying to get exhaust flow out of the bike and power out of it. Well, you also have to work to get it in. The OEM filters are much better than they used to be. It's not like in the old days where you just pull out your air filter, slap on a pod filter, and get a bunch of horsepower. You have to design the air filters to really work in combination with what we've got going on here. Our friends at Sprint Filter, they really came through for us. This thing, it's hot off the press, and when I say that, I mean that literally. This was printed for us using Rapid Prototype. Only one in the United States, probably in the world. I don't know if they made a couple or one for us, but they were in. They did a fantastic job to get this to us, so we can compare. We went ahead and went with the P16 material, which is the race filter, and that's because with all of these components and everything that we're doing here, we're going to be testing against our tried and true. Number one, we call it, it's our gauge, S1000RR Christine, who's been around the block a few times, is, the bike's been 840s with all bolt-on parts several times. Richard Gadsden's ridden her, Jeremy Teasley, Keith Dennis. We know what this bike runs, and we're going to put these components on here, the ECU, Power Commander, and we're going to do some tests between the Power Commander, flashed ECU, a mapped ECU versus the Power Commander. We're going to show you some tricks we do there also. Put some of this stuff to rest as far as which is better. Christine is tuned to perfection using these same components, oxygenated race fuel, 0.8 oil with our Petron. We are going to go apples to apples testing, same day, same weather conditions. We did it before when the S1000RR first came out. We tested against the GSX-R at the time. The BMW just, you know, unfortunately, I'm a big Suzuki fan, always have been. The BMW blew everything out of the water. Still, as far as I'm concerned, reigns supreme. We're going to see whether Suzuki has met the challenge. You know, the ZX-10 is close. The new R1, that bike impressed me. But if you go out in the real world right now, today, and you go out on and you race, it's pretty tough to beat that S1000RR. That is a serious motorcycle. And like I said, we're going to test them apples to apples and show you the results and show you how we got to the results. So be patient with us. It's not McDonald's. You can't just go and order these things. Like I said, we've got some great folks working with us using what we know and our knowledge and their fabrication techniques to put together a package that, when we're finished, we really believe is going to be some of the fastest components you can get for your new Gixxer. So stay tuned. We'll get you the results as soon as we can, fast as we can, and that way you can get your bike on its way to being completely brocked out. That's what we like to call it. So stay tuned.